folks, we're going to talk a little bit about consumer law again, as we promised you that you get to use a lot of this stuff as consumers now, and when you become captains of industry, you'll be looking at it from the other side of, oh my God, we've got to deal with these terrible consumer law. So the protection of the consumer goes back about 110 years. Many of you in school, in your history books, you may not have read the book, but you read in your history books about The Jungle by Sinclair Lewis. Talked about the horrible conditions for the workers and the animals in the sanitation in the Chicago stockyards. And it's a pretty interesting deal. We also had a lot of people wandering around, horse-drawn carriages, go into a town, sell snake oil. Not literally snake oil, but something that of undefined, and they tell everybody, you know, it's a great elixir. And in fact, earlier this season at Houston Grand Opera opened their season with Elixir of Love, which is based on, you know, the traveling salesperson that says he's going to sell this guy an elixir that makes someone else fall in love with you, and it works. The elixir doesn't work, but the guy who sells it to them and knows it's a fraud actually says, gosh, this really happened. Maybe this stuff really does work. So the con is conning himself. It's a very interesting, but premise of the very famous opera, the Elixir of Love. But what happens is that we are concerned about selling safe food, safe drugs to our own consumers, and over the last 100 years, from modest beginnings. Again, the 1914 Federal Trade Commission was created, and we passed the Food and Drug Administration Act, created an organization to improve food and drugs and to encourage, and again, there's a lot of local regulation of restaurants and things like that done on a local basis, but you know, kind of the lead came from the federal government. This is pretty interesting situations. Labeling is one of the first things we look at nationally. As you know, things that are made outside the United States must carry a label of origin. If it doesn't have a label of origin, it's made in the United States. Pretty straightforward. Of course, people try and get around it. When I am traveling, I try and buy souvenirs made in the country where I am, or the state where I am. And sometimes you see little tiny little gold decal on the bottom that says China. My favorite story about that, folks, that's about consumer protection is we're in Canada, we're in Vancouver, we're in Victoria. We're waiting for the ferry to take us from Victoria back to Washington State. And so we're killing some time waiting for the ferry to go. They have the Made in Canada shop at the ferry station. So we go in the Made in Canada shop, and I'm looking for a Canadian souvenir. I can't find something that wasn't made in China in the Made in Canada shop. I actually go to the lady at the counter, and I say, she's a nice lady, I say, I'm not trying to be too much of a smart aleck. So I say, do you have, you know, is any of this made in Canada? She said, well, we designed it. I said, no, I meant, is it really made here by a Canadian? And she said, I don't think so. It's the Made in Canada store, oh my God. But anyway, everything has to be properly labeled, even in Canada, I guess. So we need to know, I don't know that cigarette labeling has had a big impact. I think societal norms have had a huge impact on cigarette smoking. I know that I don't, in my personal life, I have a pretty large extension of friends and business acquaintances. I can't think of a single person in my circle that smokes. You know, and it's interesting. Still, some college students still smoke because they justify it. They'll stop smoking when they get out of school or something like that. I see some guilty-looking people out there. I'm not going to point out anybody. Okay. Advertising. Most of you know advertising has to be truthful, but exaggeration, that's called puffing, is okay. Best example, you know, best hamburger in the world, best pizza in town. Who knows? Who made that decision? If you're vegan, you know, it may be a veggie pizza with no cheese, you know. If you're a big-time meat eater, you know, it may be the meat eater special. That may be the best pizza in the world. So all of us are going to make different decisions about things. So if it's a matter of that. Now, on the other hand, talking about advertising, Domino and Papa John's go after it in court over advertising campaigns saying, you know, oh, we use real cheese too. No implication that real cheese wasn't being used on the pizza. Nobody's bothered about whether stuff's edible or not, but who would want to fight about that? So most of you know that they've created the Do Not Call registry. I know it doesn't work at all for me. I have all my phone numbers in the Do Not Call registry. I get fax calls on my wonderful little cell phone here, and I put a blocking thing on my thing, and it still leaves a message. It doesn't allow the number to be in my log, but there's still a message. I'd rather see the number in my log, but not have the message of the fax number that was never solicited. So what they're doing is they now have fax messages coming in marked as from Australia. So I guess they're beyond the reach of the U.S., but I mean, nobody does fax today. I mean, you know, what a bunch of clowns. I mean, you know, nobody does that stuff. So, I mean, you'd think after leaving 4,000 fax messages that never responded to, that somebody'd figure out nobody's reading them. Nobody has a fax machine. So maybe we'll get through to them. But anyway, you know, little things like that, as you know, that one of the big impacts you may have seen, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, a lot of impact in the area of baby stuff. And I'm in the grandchildren generation. We've got 3 down, and we've got 1 draft choice that we've decided to stay warm for another few days here. Do a week ago, so we're like pacing around waiting for number 4 to arrive. But all of the baby stuff has been completely changed out, because a lot of stuff that we grew up with, or I grew up with, has been decided to be, you know, unsafe. The classic example is the Jenny Lind drop-side crib, which is where as the baby got bigger, you could lower the mattress, but in order to go change the baby or take the baby out, there was a foot panel and your foot control, and you kick it and the side would go down. The trouble is, if you had a rambunctious baby, the baby might shake the side, and or if somebody's not attentive, can hurt the baby in a guillotine type fashion, or a bad fashion. So the drop side cribs are no longer cool portable playpens, and you want to keep the little twins contained so you don't have to chase them around so much. And what happens is that the crib collapses, and again the baby can be hurt by members in the crib collapsing on the baby. So that's an area of big focus. My favorite story, as we run out of time here tonight, is jarts, lawn jarts. These were giant darts. Now, when these came out, this is about 30 years ago, I remember when these came out, and I said to myself as a parent, what were they thinking? How dangerous could this be? This is not like, you play it like horseshoes, but they're giant darts, and you play it in 2 teams, and you whip the dart down towards a target next to the team on the opposite end, and vice versa. Horrible story, true story. Little boy, like 5 or 6 years old, in the front of his house, takes the jar, flips it in the air, clears the roof of the house. Hire this guy to pitch for the Astros, I guess. Clears the house, impales the head of his sister in the backyard, kills her. True story, kills her. Like a lawn jar dart. It's a huge metal dart. It's like, folks, you mean to tell me the big toy company that came up with this, and then had the television came in, that nobody ever thought that somebody could be horribly hurt? Nobody did none. Anyway, I don't know that one had to have a recall versus the people figured it out after the first 14 lawsuits. But anyway, folks, we're out of time for this.